So today we're going to be talking about testing smoke detectors, and we're going to do so on a mains interlink system. So that's one we've got the mains power and battery backup. So if we just look underneath, we can see that there's a green LED. That green LED indicates that there's power, and then there's an occasional flashing red LED. Should come about every 60 seconds or so on this particular model, which is made by ACO or EI Professional. Other models sort of vary, so it depends on the manufacturer's instructions. So to take this detector actually off the base, what we need to do is need to insert a screwdriver into a slot. On the side, it's got the slot that says to remove, push screwdriver into slot and push your cover away. So I push the screwdriver into the slot. Now I just need to basically push the cover away and the whole thing comes down. So on some detectors, you have the battery backup is actually a 9-volt replaceable battery. On others, it will say that the detector has the battery built into the base and it will have a replace by date. On this particular model, you need to change that battery every so often. We recommend yearly. You can get a battery tester from somewhere like Maplin and basically put it on the 2 terminals of the battery when you take it off, and it will tell you exactly how much battery is left if you want to try and stretch it out for longer than a year. But personally, I would say just change it every year. On these detectors, there is a replace by date, so hopefully you can see that there, and on this particular one it says replaced by the December 2026. Now you need to adhere to when those replaced by dates are. If the replaced by date is missing off the detector, I would recommend replacing it if it's that old. Sometimes they're just so old they don't have replaced by dates anymore. Refitting's fairly simple, it's just reverse order of what we did minus the screwdriver. We don't need the screwdriver to actually refit to the base. So again, we just need to just align the tabs up here and then just slide it back into the base. We'll know it's in place because we've got a power indicator on and there's no gaps around the detector edge, noting that it's actually in the base properly. What we need to do is basically just press the test button, and if there are any other detectors that link to the same system, then we need to make sure that they sound too. And you can normally hear because the other ones take a little bit longer to turn off than the first. It's best to try and do this with 2 people. So one of the other things we need to check is smoke alarm positioning. We need to make sure that smoke alarms are within 3 meters of bedroom doors, as you can see in this diagram here. So it should be no more than 3 meters away from the outside edge. And that's to basically wake up someone in the event of the alarm actually going off. If it's any further away, we may not achieve enough sound to wake someone who's asleep. And finally, checking where the smoke alarms are actually sited. So aside from actually showing here on the diagram that it's actually on the ceiling, that's quite important. They should never be on the wall, they should always be on the ceiling. This is smoke alarms I'm talking about specifically though. We should have smoke alarms on all escape routes, so that will be hallways and landings. Ideally, and this is not always the case in every premises, but ideally we'd have a smoke alarm in the principal habitable room and also a heat alarm in the kitchen. And the idea of a heat alarm is that it actually goes off when there's actual physical fire rather than just smoke, so you're avoiding false alarms, but you know it's sensitive enough that it's going to give you early warning. So if you're a landlord, I would actually consider keeping a record just for your own safekeeping, and this would include the date, the log, for instance, carried out a push button test, any remarks, i.e. if all the alarms are okay or if there's one faulty that needs replacing, and who actually did the test, whether or not it's yourself or someone else. And if we're using an outside servicing company, then they should give you something like this, whereby you can actually see what your servicing is, you can actually see all the logbook visits, etc., and what's related with those. And you should also be able to actually view your certificates, etc., and they should be actually formal certificates or reports that give you details of what's been done. And this is pretty important if you're a landlord.